How? Like, he's just not engaging with the video. Am I correct? He's just not engaging with the video there, right? Okay, so would you describe October 7th as mass and systematized? They use this claim as a pretext, but don't allow full investigation from outside parties. I think that's worth pointing out. You've had like bad experiences with these people, and it's soured your view of all of them, and you just sort of you're basically saying, like, oh, lefties suck. Oh yeah, I wish everyone could just John Lennon imagine. I'm not pro-genocide. I wish everyone could just John Lennon imagine. Yo, I don't want to see anyone die. I wish they could all just get along. No, I don't think the lawsuit's in good faith. I worry that it is in such bad faith. This is the point I'm at with this stuff. I would not be surprised if Ethan feels like he can weaponize the current climate to f these people. That he can weaponize the state that America is in right now to completely f these people. That would not surprise me. So, no, I'm not a big fan of that. I don't know how you can reasonably... I don't know what the actual defamation claim that Ethan is trying to claim is. But, like, if it's, you support a genocide, if that's the defamatory claim, like, that's the easiest thing in the world to argue. I can literally just go, you pay taxes, you support a genocide. That's the easiest thing in the world to argue. Sorry, but First Amendment applies to lefties too. Or it's meant to, I should say. It's meant to apply to lefties. Yeah, for now. Asmongold is on vacation for a week. Is it because of what Destiny said about his mom? But yeah. So, Denims is getting blamed for the CPS thing. Ethan said, like, multiple times, Denims did CPS, but she literally said to her chat, don't call CPS. She said, don't call CPS. Whatever's happening in their house, CPS would be worse. That's what she said. CPS would be worse than whatever's going on in their house. That's what Denim said. No, I would not change my mind based on what the judge says. My opinion of whether it's defamatory or not would come from the claim, an evaluation of what I believe the truth of the claim to be and Noah's intention to be. I don't care if the judge says it's defamation. My speech, my beliefs about speech are not informed by the law. That would be insane. I think, even if you think it's a bad argument, Noah should be able to say that Ethan is a genocide supporter. You can say it's a bad argument, but there is an argument there that I think is fine. Okay, you don't care if it's defamation or not. Okay, well, I don't know how you're even getting that from what you said. I said my determination would come from the truth of the claim and what I think Noah was saying, what I think he thought and what he was saying. That is required to determine whether it's a lie, whether it's defamation. I'm not going to change my opinion based on a legal judgment, because that's not how I determine what speech is okay. I would not allow a court to tell me what speech I should think is okay. That's retarded. Yeah, I believe in free speech when the courts tell me I'm allowed it. Wow, cool. But yeah, it's just like anyone. There's just so much scum. So much scum defending this stuff. Alright, let me watch over this bit. Someone tell me if I'm wrong here. Someone tell me if I'm wrong here.
Okay.
All of these claims are false. Complete.
From crime sites.
So this guy, literally, the guy who linked me this was being dishonest as fuck as well, by the way. Linking this right at the end.
Oh.
Hatred of Jews.
Okay.
This narrative.
Okay, wait, let's pull up this other video as well. Let's hear the actual thing.
If you like my video, we have the proof. It's been confirmed with direct evidence and testimony, with internal newsroom memos from not only the BBC, but the New York Times as well. And the last thing to talk about is just atrocity propaganda. One of the primary justifications for the genocide in Gaza is that members of Hamas are not just militants, but that they are monsters, pure evil motivated by nothing more than the sadistic hatred of Jews. This narrative has been fueled by...
Do you think Cole Jobs has the right to say Billy Mitchell caused that one guy to commit suicide without legal action? No, because he stated untrue things as fact.
Stories of horrors that supposedly took place on October 7th.
He said something happened that didn't happen, and then attributed a chain of causation to that event.
7th, Hamas burned babies in ovens.
They burnt babies alive.
They put children and burned them to death.
They cut the breasts off of women.
400 women shot in the genitals, their breasts cut off as terrorists played with their bloody breasts like a football.
They cut off the breasts of women and throw them around.
They beheaded 40 babies.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children.
They behead children.
They cut the fetus out of the womb of a pregnant woman. They committed a campaign of systematized mass rape.
There is no justification for collective rape.
What happened on October 7th was mass, systematic, planned rape and genital mutilation of women.
All of these claims are false, complete fabrications, full stop. No credible evidence has been provided for any of them. Many were shown to be deliberately fabricated, and despite this, they were spread far and wide and ultimately used as rhetorical justification to continue the genocidal onslaught in Gaza.
So we all agree that no, what just happened there? Okay, so tell me if I'm wrong. All right, so contest this in chat if this is wrong. Noah Samsen just gave a list of Israeli propaganda talking points. He said, beheaded babies, mass systematized rape, campaign of female genital mutilation, cutting the tits off of women, cutting fetuses out of the stomach. He gave all those claims, right? And then he said at the end, all of those claims that I just listed, none of those have credible evidence for them. That's what we all agree, that's the case, right? That's what just happened there? Anyone think that's not what happened there? Okay. Now, did he... Let me ask you guys another question. Did he say there's no credible evidence, or did he even imply that there's no credible evidence for any rapes on October 7th? Did he imply that no rapes happened, or that there's no credible evidence for any rapes? Okay. So we all agree. He is not denying the existence of any rapes on October 7th. All right, cool. Let's watch LonerBox.
Active rape, that did happen. The UN report said that happened. There were children who were in houses.
Off of
Oh, I did not know I had all. Whoa!
with internal newsroom
Bell.
pure evil motivated by nothing more than the sadistic hatred of Jews. This
Okay.
narrative has been fueled by stories of horrors that supposedly took place on October 7th. Hamas burned babies in ovens.
They burnt babies alive.
They put children and burned them to death.
They cut the breasts off of women.
I don't know about babies, but there were children who were in houses that got set on fire. That happened, didn't it?
They cut the breasts off.
They burnt babies alive.
They put children and burned them to death.
They cut the breasts off of women.
I don't know about babies, but there were children who were in houses that got set on fire. That happened, didn't it? There was the mother there was in an embrace with her child, and they both had like soot in their lungs, which indicates that they were still alive when they were on fire. Okay.
400 women shot in the genitals, their breasts cut off as terrorists played
Don't listen to anything Rabbi Shmuley says. He's completely insane. Okay.
with their bloody breasts like a football.
They cut off the breasts of women and throw them around.
They beheaded 40 babies.
I never really thought that I would see and have confirmed pictures of terrorists beheading children.
They behead children.
They cut the fetus out of the womb of a pregnant woman. They committed a campaign of systematized mass rape.
There is no justification for collective rape.
What happened on October 7th was mass.
Why is he reframing everything like collective rape? That did happen. The UN report said that happened. They didn't say it was mass ordered systematized. He's doing the Hassan thing. He's like,
Well, so the definition, okay, so he's saying there is collective rape, but not mass ordered systematized. When I search collective rape, the definition I get, collective rape is defined as a pattern of sexual violence perpetrated on civilians by agents of a state or political civil group and measured through two indicators of occurrence or non-occurrence in various countries and years. So that seems to me it has to be a pattern, like a large pattern. Not large, but like a... It seems like there has to be some characterizing element of a pattern. Like, that has to be a thing that is going on as a tactic, you know? That seems like what that's saying to me. The UN report never uses the term collective, as far as I understand.
Reframing what they're saying to make it sound like ridiculous. Okay. Great. Whoa. Is this the right place? Yeah, okay.
Mass systematic planned rape and genital mutilation of women.
So she said it. Okay. So Dershowitz didn't say it, but she did. Okay. Reviewed testimonies obtained by journalists and the Israeli police concerning rape, but has not been able to independently verify such allegations due to a lack of access to victims, witnesses, and crime sites, obstruction, unable to review the unedited version of such testimonies. Okay. Hang on. I think this is from the...
See, Potato Bug, this is like the level, like... You are engaging, that question is like a retarded engagement that anyone on the Palestine side would be mocked into dirt for saying. You say, I mean, so much happening on one day could be considered that, right? No, it's not about like a number. It's about there has to be some pattern of occurrence and non-occurrence. I don't know how they determine it, but there's a more technical definition here. That's like saying, well, lots of 6 guerrillion dead Palestinians, therefore genocide. Which they would get mocked to fuck for saying. Yet for some reason we allow this stupid as fuck lazy reasoning from the other side.
Exact same report. There's no way that he's got this from the same report. I wonder if, let's double check this is the same? Yeah. What's the context of this?
Is this the one?
Review testimonies obtained by journalists. He's talking about testimonies obtained by journalists and Israeli police. Okay. Are we going to go to the results of their own fact-finding mission? What the commission actually found by the exact same report. Review testimonies obtained by journalists.
Systematic planned rape and genital mutilation of women.
So she said it. Okay. So Dershowitz didn't say it, but she did. Okay. Review testimonies obtained by journalists and the Israeli police concerning rape, but has not been able to independently verify such allegations due to a lack of access to victims, witnesses, and crime sites, obstruction, unable to review the unedited version of such testimonies. Okay. Hang on. I think this is from the exact same report. There's no way that he's got this from the same report. I wonder if, let's double check this is the same? Yeah. What's the context of this? Review testimonies obtained by journalists. He's talking about testimonies obtained by journalists and Israeli police. Okay. Are we going to go to the results of their own fact-finding mission? What the commission actually found themselves, which was the attack enabled perpetrators to commit sexual violence. And it was not isolated, but perpetrated in similar ways in several locations by multiple perpetrators. We're not going to get that bit? That bit's important, no? That bit's very important. The attack enabled perpetrators to commit sexual violence. And it was not isolated, but perpetrated in similar ways in several locations by multiple perpetrators. We're not going to get that bit? That bit's important, no? That bit's...
Okay, but I don't understand what that... Is that part of the collective rape definition?
Very important. This makes it almost sound like, if you just look at these highlighted bits, that makes it sound like they couldn't verify that nothing happened. Okay.
No, it doesn't.
All of these claims are false, complete fabrications, full stop, no credible evidence.
Oh, so he's a rape denier. Nice one.
What? How? Like, he's just not engaging with the video. Am I correct? He's just not engaging with the video there, right? Noah Samsen listed the claims that he was refuting. He wasn't saying rape, period. He said mass systematized. It was the mass systematized, the collective rape, the mass systematized rape. Yeah, that's what I thought. He's just gaming. But, like, this is being taken as fact by, like, huge amounts of people having to engage with this now. That just seems totally wrong to me. Like I said, I don't assume to know better than LonerBox on any of this stuff. I would default to him on almost anything. But this seems completely blatant.
No credible evidence, whilst posting a segment from a report that has credible evidence. that describes it as credible evidence. Out of interest, is it the same one where you can just...
Yeah, but it doesn't say it as credible evidence of the mass systematized claim, right? He's talking about the claims he just listed.
It doesn't let you look at the actual... I have to download it. RIP. Give me find on page. Right, PDF. Okay, credible. This isn't the same commission. Where's the... This is the one saying that they didn't receive orders. Okay.
He's live calling. I'm not even in his Discord. I don't know if he even wants to talk about this. I'll message him, I guess. Okay, I messaged LonerBox saying, I think in this clip you call Noah Samsen a rape denier for denying some combination of collective, mass, or systematized rapes on October 7th. My understanding is that rapes were shown, but the mass/systematized part was the part that wasn't evidenced/true. Am I missing something? We'll see if we get a reply. Where are you getting this from? The strongest circumstantial evidence they present shows that only 0.41% of the 4,831 total victims on October 7th were found as naked or partially naked bodies. Also, Lahav 433, essentially the Israeli FBI, has so far refused to provide a specific number of confirmed rape cases and has declined to release details about their investigation. Where are you getting this information from? Is there... The report only highlights 20 or so suspiciously placed bodies. Okay. When you say report, do you mean that UN report? That, the one that Noah Samsen uses? Or is it a UN report? See, there are people who literally deny the rapes. What? Who's denying the rapes? Who is denying the rapes? Who is denying rapes that are proven? It's not lying by omission, Evil Johnny Bravo. Evil Johnny Bravo, I'm starting to get in the sense you're Jewish. It's not lying by omission at all. He shows screenshots where it's actually saying, like, we need to do further investigation to determine the exact scope of sexual violence. That there's no lie by omission. He is specifically dispelling a set of Israeli propaganda talking points. At no point does he say rapes didn't happen. He doesn't even imply that. It's just like not even there. And it's not the argument LonerBox makes either. That's the argument Gunter started making and then fell back from. LonerBox doesn't make that argument. No one reasonable is making that argument that it's lying by omission to say, well, there weren't mass systematized rape. That's just true. There was not mass systematized rape, as far as we can tell. LonerBox watching a clip from a minute ago. Let's see.
Children.
They cut the fetus out of the womb of a pregnant woman. They committed a campaign of systematized mass rape.
There is no justification for collective rape.
What happened on October 7th was mass.
Why is he reframing everything like collective rape? That systematized. He's doing the Hassan thing. He's like,
okay, well, so the definition. Okay, so he's saying there is collective rape.
So why did he use the clip of someone saying collective rape? So it sounds like he thinks systematized mass rape is synonymous with collective rape. Again, it's just the thing about systematized. People are just going to play fast and loose with that definition because systematized or systematic or systemic doesn't necessarily mean there needs to be a top-down order or it happening to like thousands of people, right? That can just be like a pattern of behavior. That can be systemic, right?
Right, but not mass ordered systematized. When I search collective rape, the definition I get.
What?
Collective rape is defined as a pattern of sexual violence perpetrated on civilians by agents of a state or political civil group and measured through two indicators of occurrence or non-occurrence in various countries and years.
Yeah.
So that seems to me it has to be a pattern, like a large pattern.
Okay.
Not large, but like a... It seems like there has to be some characterizing element of a pattern. Like that has to be a thing that is going on as a tactic, you know? That seems like what that's saying to me.
A pattern, yeah.
The UN report never uses the term collective, as far as I understand.
Are they watching me now? Because I can see the chat. This is behind, but I can see the chat from now. Okay. Reframing what they're saying to make it sound like ridiculous. Okay. Great. Whoa. Is this the right place? Yeah, okay.
Mass, systematic, planned rape and genital mutilation of women.
So she said it. Okay. So Dershowitz didn't say it, but she did. Okay. Reviewed testimonies obtained by journalists and the Israeli police concerning rape, is not able to independently verify such allegations due to a lack of access to victims, witnesses, and crime sites, obstruction, unable to review the unedited version of such testimonies. Okay, hang on. I think this is from the...
See, Potato Bug, this is like the level, like... You are engaging. That question is like a retarded engagement that anyone on the Palestine side would be mocked into dirt for saying. You say, I mean, so much happening on one day could be considered that, right? No, it's not about like a number. It's about there has to be some pattern of occurrence and non-occurrence. I don't know how they determine it, but there's
Okay, let's just talk. I don't care.
for real. Let's go. I'm calling him.
Hello.
Hey, how's it going?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. I got linked a clip of your video because I was arguing with someone about Noah Samsen, and I was like, usually I just assume you to know way more about this than me, and I was like, I feel like you're wrong here, so I need to ask you.
Okay.
So basically, Noah Samsen lists a set of claims that he's denying. Those are, he plays all the clips and he says, so it's like cutting women's tits off and throwing them around, cutting out fetuses, the 40 beheaded babies, and then one of them's Dershowitz says collective rape, and then the other woman says mass systematized rape. And Noah Samsen is responding to that and saying, all those claims that I just listed have no credible evidence for them. And my understanding is that is supported by the UN report, that collective rape or mass systematized rape, that hasn't been found, that they wanted to investigate that, but Israel refused. And someone was saying that apparently, is it the Israeli equivalent of the FBI is refusing to release their investigation as well? So my understanding from that is that if Noah Samsen says those claims didn't have it, there's no credible evidence for mass systematized or collective rape, that isn't rape denial as far as I'm aware.
So are we saying that collective rape is the same, is synonymous with systemic or systematized?
I don't understand this well enough to know if there's a difference between those terms from the definitions I've read.
Okay. It sounds like Noah is saying they're synonymous because he said that he's denying systematized rape, but then he uses a clip of someone saying collective.
Yeah, so is there a difference between collective and systematized to you, or?
I don't know. In this context, it seems to be like they would be roughly the same. Like, because when people talk about systemic racism, for example, they would say like you don't need policy or you don't.
Yeah,
need
exactly. Like you would. Yeah, exactly. That's what I was thinking. Because like, obviously, they probably are they doing even if Hamas did do systematized rape, they're probably not doing a speech before they charge in, going, "We are there to rape and make sure first and foremost go rape." That's probably not what's happening.
Well, one of the disputes is over whether or not the Hamas people had little pamphlets on them that had Hebrew phrases in them for the soldiers to learn. And so some things like "put your hands up" or "move over there," and one of them was like "remove your clothes."
Right. Yeah. So that would be like an implied like tactic, basically, of sexual violence.
Yeah, I believe that pamphlet was reviewed by NBC, but I think most people just deny it or say it's forged or whatever. But I don't know. I don't really care for that one.
Okay.
But to say that it was a pattern of behavior, I think the UN report gives more than enough evidence for that. I think that given the way that people study how rapes happen in the past, particularly with events that every pro-Palestine person would agree that mass rapes happen, say, for example, the Sabra Shatila massacre, the evidence that we have for that is generally thin, and it's normally good enough. So all these retards in your chat, they're calling me a fucking phalangist, for example.
Ignore the chat, but first of all, you're saying that there's thin evidence, but it's not, I'm not necessarily thinking like thin evidence. When you say, well, everyone would agree that there's mass rapes here, I want to know what the reasoning is for the exact claim of mass rape there. Like, is it an incidence amount? Is there, like, out of however many fatalities, there was X amount rapes, and this is the proportion? Or like, how is that determined? How is it? At what point is it determined that multiple rapes is a mass rape or systemic rape?
Yeah, so usually in war, your evidence for rapes happening is going to be pretty weak because people who are raped are usually killed afterwards. So survivor testimony is rare. Witness testimony can often be confused, and like there can be trauma aspects and things like that. And perpetrators generally don't admit to it. So in the past, we agree that rapes happened in the Beirut massacre, even though most of the evidence for that is that lots of women, mostly women, were found with their either fully or stripped from the waist down with their legs spread. That's the evidence for widespread rapes at that event. Survivors, there are, as far as I know, I don't think there were
I
any
feel
who
like
said
you're not
that
really
it
answering.
happened
Like,
to
I
them,
don't really feel I'm not getting an answer on like how the rape, multiple rapes becomes mass or systematized. Like how is that determination made from?
That's completely arbitrary.
It's totally
It would
arbitrary.
just have to be, because you would have to consider the time that the attack happened, how many locations it might have happened. But that to me that would be arbitrary. A pattern of behavior, specifically on October 7th, it was 3 different locations at least. I would say that, and given that they only had superiority over these locations for 10 hours, I would say that counts as a pattern. Yeah.
Okay, so would you describe October 7th as mass and systematized?
I would say mass. Systematized can suggest like a level of military order that I'm not sure I would support the evidence for, but mass, I generally say pattern or systemic. That's what I go for.
Okay. And you would say that it is rape denial to say there wasn't mass rape on October 7th?
Well, to say that collective rape, which was what Noah was using as a clip, then I would say that would be denial. Yeah,
If you
especially
deny
since the
collective rape specifically.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So what distinguishes collective rape from mass rape to you?
Because when people say mass, I don't know. I feel like they're just assuming like maybe there were hundreds of victims as opposed to tens or dozens. I don't know.
But then what would be the distinction with collective? Because that feels like the same that you're punishing a group with rape.
Well, because collective just sounds like there's a pattern of behavior. Collective can be like, when people say collectives, they can talk about 12 or 25 or 50 or something like that. But when people talk about like mass, when I think of mass rapes, I think of like
it's an implication of scale. That's
because when people talk about mass, like they talk about, especially in war, they might talk about like Pakistan or like genocides where like thousands of people are raped.
Got you.
I don't have a problem with saying it though, because like if you're talking about it obviously with less people in a smaller space of time in a smaller area, then I guess it's mass in terms of like concentration.
Okay. So what would you say? Let's say someone said like that there was some claim some lefty made where it's like what is it, like only 0.4% of the bodies were found to be in suspicious positions or whatever, something like that. Of the 4,000 bodies on October 7th, only like 0.4% of them were considered to be like suspicious of being the suspicion of that they were raped. What would you say if someone said that and said, well, because the scale was so low, because the proportion is so low, I don't think that's collective.
No, that's not what people are doing.
But if they did, I'm presenting that argument to you.
If they did, they just said that there were 4,000 bodies, but only 4% of them are
0.4%. I think someone said it was. It's based. I believe that the way they're coming to that figure is looking at the bodies that are listed as being in suspicious positions or suspected of being raped, and that UN report taking that number of bodies and then.
Oh, whoever said that is lying to you. That no one ever said how many bodies were found stripped.
No, they're not saying.
It's
not saying. I don't think it's saying how many. I think they just go down the list and say, count them up, basically.
They list all the specified incidents, but not the fact that they say that witnesses saw multiple bodies, and they don't say how many multiple.
Sure, means. They're not including eyewitness testimony. I don't think when they make that claim.
Yeah, if someone says that there were only 0.4%, then that might be a good reason to say it's not like a pattern.
Okay, so if someone made that argument, would you say they're a rape denier?
I'd need more information. No.
Okay, all right. Well, I feel like I've understood roughly the logic in the clip. So I mean, I don't feel to talk about anything else, but I'm satisfied.
Are you okay? Do you think there was a pattern of rape on October 7th?
I don't know. I don't have strong takes on a lot of this stuff. I just entertain both arguments.
Okay.
I feel like a lot of people don't engage with the lefty stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I can I can tell you specifically why I had a problem with what Noah was doing with regards to the rapes.
Sure, go for it.
There was a particular bit where he kept on referring back to this part of the report where it's just a sentence that says that the report or the fact-finding mission wasn't willing to or wasn't able to determine the scope, I think, the scope of how many rapes happened on October 7th. And he seemed to use that as a way to write off what Ethan was saying about rapes happening on October 7th. So there's this thing that people do, and it's very specific to October 7th, where the standard of evidence that people are demanding is just very, very different. So people will say things like, oh, there were no like forensics, or there's no survivor testimony or anything like that. But people accept that rapes have happened in previous conflicts where you don't have any of this, where you do just have circumstantial evidence, or they'll just like change the terminology to like systematize, widespread, mass, or ordered, even though.
Okay, but wait, okay, I feel like
still...
isn't the reason they're saying that because that is a line that is being pushed by like Israeli propaganda, basically, that Hamas engage in mass systematized rape. So when they say it, they're actually countering the propaganda line. That's like when Noah mentions it, right? It's because he's countering
yeah,
this.
but people, the problem is that people will appeal to the more extreme false claims as a way to discredit the true claims.
I mean, yeah, I don't doubt that like people will like strawman the fuck out of it and like, you know, argue with basically like, you know, the most crazy IDF spokesman or some shit that you can find and act like that's all the IDF, that's all the pro-Israeli side. But I mean, I feel like that happens the other way around. It's like to say like there's some specific thing happening in this debate there. I don't think that's true. I think the only thing you said that he brought this up to minimize something Ethan was saying, but wasn't the whole point that Ethan is calling Hassan a rape denier for the clip where he says, even if rapes did happen on October 7th, that wouldn't change anything. And then he's talking about, I think, the mass systematized claim, basically, as that clip goes on. Isn't that what it's all in response to? Is that Ethan is attacking Hassan on that clip?
He uses multiple clips. Yeah, that clip is retarded. I don't think when he's saying that even if rapes happen, that doesn't change the dynamic. That's not like rape denial. That quote's got, yeah, that was a stupid clip to use. The other clip that Hassan has used, and he said it multiple times now, is Hassan only says that there's one case of rape and it's the person in captivity. That's what Hassan says.
Right.
Which is ridiculous. Yeah, that's just
is
not
that
true.
okay? What
Yeah.
does he say? There's only one case, or that's the only one that's proven.
He said there's only one that has like good evidence, but again, good evidence to him is apparently not good evidence.
All right, I understand what you're saying. Yeah, I see what you're saying there. He would accept rapes with way less evidence in other conflicts, but in this case, he's saying, "Oh, well, there's only one." Right. So okay, I get what you're saying in terms of that argument with Hassan, but I don't see that that's what Noah Samsen was doing. It seemed like Noah Samsen was responding to Ethan's points about Hassan, and was like. I think does Ethan not use the term mass or systematized in the video? Is that not slightly before in this Noah Samsen video?
I would have to look back at it, but I believe there's a point where Ethan is trying to make the argument about a pattern of rapes on October 7th, and Noah's response is to take a screenshot from a report that says the report was unable to establish the prevalence.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, he said where it's about unable to establish prevalence, exact scope and magnitudes unknown until we do a full investigation, and then he says it needs a block the investigation.
Which doesn't mean anything, because like we don't know the prevalence of rape at Sabra Shatila. It doesn't mean it didn't happen. It doesn't mean it didn't happen a lot, right? Yeah, it's just not a response.
Sure, but no, but I think again the point he's making there isn't even mass rapes didn't happen. He's saying, you're so sure that this thing happened. Even the UN report doesn't actually say that, and we can't find out for certain because Israel won't let us in. Maybe you should ask, why don't Israel want this investigated? Why are they happy to let this propaganda line sit without full investigation? I think that's the point. No, it's not mass rape didn't happen. It's why are they so happy to allow this to sit without full investigation? Obviously, because it benefits them. Because if it was looked into and it ever turned out that it was less than expected or wasn't mass or systematized, that would pose an issue to them.
Yeah, so there's a whole complex reason for why Israel doesn't really want to have UN investigators running around their country and going through their confidential information. Some of it is legitimate, some of it's not. Probably the main reason is that the UN report also wanted to look at abuses in Palestinian prisons and like Palestinian prisoners in Israeli jails. Which is a shit reason, but that'll be why they're probably not wanting to do it. There are other more legitimate reasons, like obviously people don't want like
bodies dug up and
the
all
bodies
that
of their
stuff.
relatives going through autopsies and things
Sure,
like that.
I just I guess I just don't. For me personally, my take on all that stuff is like fuck how Israel feels the international community needs to be able to do their job basically right now. That's the point I'm at. That's why one of the few things I have a strong take on is blocking the UN and everyone else from coming in and trying to fix the shit because
they should allow the investigation. They should also allow an investigation into their own prisons. But since they're not, we don't use the fact that they're not as proof that like the
no. But I think it's worth pointing out if you're discussing the way Israeli propaganda works. I think it's worth pointing out. Well, they use this claim as a pretext, but don't allow full investigation from outside parties. I think that's worth pointing out.
Pointing out to prove what?
Pointing out to, well, I would have to go back. I don't actually know what Noah Samsen was using in service of, but to me that's important because, like, if a claim isn't true, the truth of a claim is important to whether it's justified pretext, and they are using that as pretext. So I think it's valuable on its own to investigate that claim because
they're using the rapes as pretext, to go to war with Hamas?
Well, they're using it as pretext in the media, yeah. They use it as justification, right? That's the point of having claims like that out in the media is to justify to either your base in your own country or abroad with other countries that might support you that, oh, these are horrible, horrible people, we need to do something about this.
I'm pretty sure Israel's pretext for war with Hamas is the fact that Hamas like launched an attack into sovereign territory.
I understand that's their pretext for why they started the war, but that's how propaganda works, right? You don't just have one pretext where one thing happens that's justified and everyone lets you do what you want. No, they continue making claims and having claims out there because that strengthens their position to continue military action, right?
Yeah, so you're arguing that they should they should be obligated to have a level of transparency that they're not offering now.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree with that.
Yeah.
I don't think the fact that they're not invalidates the claim of whether or not there were rapes on October 7th, though.
Yeah, but I don't think anyone's even contesting the idea that there were rapes. I think it's a systematized part, right?
Oh, yeah, I don't think it actually invalidates that there was a pattern of rape either. Just because they have shitty reasons for not wanting a full investigation doesn't mean the evidence that we have now isn't good enough, because it's been good enough for the past, and it's good enough for every other time that pro-Palestinian people have tried to assert rapes in previous wars.
Yeah, I don't think I would even contest the idea that there was a pattern of rape on October 7th. I just don't like the idea that you can use a claim that you refuse to allow investigation into to strengthen your position in military action.
So we're agreed that it was a pattern of rapes, but the investigation, that Israel should allow more investigation.
Yes. Because they don't just claim pattern of rapes or that there were some rapes. It seemed like a pattern. These people seem like they'd be raping. They don't say that. They say mass systematized. They say that, you know, they came in to rape us like that. So there's that sort of language that I hear used.
Yeah. Well, if we can agree that there was a pattern of rape on October 7th, I can guarantee you that getting people who are, I don't know if Noah himself would deny that, but people in like with that particular word, but people in that sphere, and yeah, it would be like pulling teeth to get them to admit that particular claim.
Okay.
I think to most of these people, it was just like one or two.
Do you feel like maybe you've had like bad experiences with these people, and it's soured your view of all of them, and you just sort of you're basically saying like, oh, lefties suck, and so I'm not engaging with a lot of their positions. I just assume they're like coming from worse faith, and don't engage with it. I engage like with the position 5 steps down.
Not in this case. No, this is the same video we're watching right now where Noah said that Israel killed hundreds of their own people in friendly fire on October 7th through the Hannibal Doctrine. He said they killed hundreds. I think the most we know from UN reports is like maybe 20 died in friendly fire.
Hundreds. Okay.
He said
Well,
hundreds.
I can look into that one next.
We can agree that that's batshit, right?
I haven't looked into how much friendly fire there was at all.
Okay.
So I wouldn't make a strong claim.
Okay. Yeah, I think generally if someone when someone's making claims like that, I might lose a little bit of like charitability towards them. But no, like Noah's basically like parroted the same claims as other people. He's used the same arguments, and he actually used the clip of collective rape to, which he uses as synonymous with systematic. So yeah, I think.
Okay,
he
well, what is the what is the silver bullet Noah Samsen defamed Ethan Klein argument?
Defamed.
Yeah.
So just for the record, I don't think people should be resolving this shit through defamation lawsuits. That's not what I support.
Do you feel like just a side question here? Do you kind of feel like it's a bit, fucked that given the whole current climate in America, Ethan's pursuing this? Like, you don't think there could be some bad precedent that ends up getting set here in some way?
I don't think the climate matters. It maybe makes it a bit worse, but
well, yeah, that's what I'm saying.
In the best climate, you shouldn't do
I'm
that.
I'm like a bit worried, me personally, right now. Look at that lawsuit going. Like the amount of anti-Semitism shit I hear from like Vance and Trump. It's like, what's going to happen here? Anyway, yeah. What you were saying, you don't think?
I mean, the defamation was by saying that he backs a genocide.
Right, but
that's like the defamatory claim.
Sure, but to me, in Land of the Free, you could literally say you pay taxes, you back a genocide, and that would be First Amendment protected. That, to me, I don't know how you think about that.
You pay taxes, you defend. But he's not. But Noah didn't say that Ethan was defending a genocide by paying taxes. He said he was doing it by advocacy,
sure. So
right?
what's the specific false claim that Noah uses to claim that Ethan is backing a genocide?
Well, he lies by omission because he leaves out the fact that Ethan has repeatedly, since day one, called the Israeli war in Gaza a genocide and opposed it.
If you're making an argument through like the lens of like manufactured consent, that's not really a satisfactory response, is it?
What? So you think he calls it a genocide, he opposes it, but he says things that manufacture consent?
Well, I don't think, but I'm saying that I assume Noah's argument would be that basically, even if you say genocide bad a few times, if the lion's share of your content is running interference for the Israeli government by attacking pro-Palestinian activists, then you are manufacturing consent for a genocide.
Well, then, I mean, Noah can plead retardation if he wants to by saying that. But yeah,
I mean, that's like a pretty standard lefty perspective, isn't it? Like basically every Noam Chomsky dick sucker thinks that sort of shit.
Yeah, but that's like saying that wouldn't every attack on Hamas be manufacturing consent by their logic then? Like, because you can say that, oh yeah, Hamas murdered mostly civilians on October 7th, which is the ultimate pretext for a war in Gaza, and said they want to do it again, which is also the pretext because they want to continue doing it. Would that be like you back a genocide then by saying that?
Sorry, you back a genocide by doing what? By
saying that Hamas like murdered Israeli civilians and wants to do it again until Israel's destroyed.
I assume that would be a more complex analysis of your content as a whole. I think that's the point, right? Is that, yeah, Ethan can put up his tweet where he says, West Bank settlers are valid military targets. He can tweet that one time, but then if he's always making anti-Palestinian activist content, that still has the overall effect. Your effect in the world is backing a genocide. That's probably what they would argue. There's a balancing of actions here.
Could I? So you're arguing whether or not this is like First Amendment protected or whether or not it counts as defamatory.
Yeah.
When you say defamatory, you mean like he's intentionally lying about him, or he's maliciously lying about him, or he's lying with reckless disregard, or?
Well, yeah, I think it's what's the standard? Like either the actual malice thing isn't actually like. Because it's like there is some level of gross negligence, I think, that's allowed under the extra malice standard, right?
They're like reckless disregard for the truth.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, because like technically, if you want to do the lefty thing where everything is just so like whatever interwoven into something else, so like I could say, well, if I called you a rapist because I think, say X streamer, I call them a rapist because they but all my evidence is that they support rape culture by being objectifying and shitty towards women and calling them bitches and shit like or whores and stuff like that, even though they always say they oppose rape. Like, I think that would probably still be defamatory if I called them
I
a
mean,
rapist,
if you called them
right?
a rapist, because
or pro-rape.
That's claim. Yeah, but pro-rape, I think you could argue. Rapist, I don't think you could necessarily argue. But like that would be like calling Ethan a war criminal, right? You couldn't call Ethan a war criminal, but you could probably say he backs a genocide. Not that I think he backs genocide, but you could probably argue from that framework that he backs a genocide. And the same way you could probably argue that person is pro-rape, but not that they're a rapist.
Yeah, I don't know. I think if I called someone pro-rape because what they had done was they were occasionally a bit misogynistic on stream, I feel like, again, I wouldn't like them to sue me, obviously, but it's probably fair to call that defamatory.
I don't believe. I mean, in the UK, there might be. I struggle to believe it on the First Amendment. That's defamatory. That seems crazy. Unless you're making up a factual basis for it, like I can't see how you're defaming them by having that interpretation. That's an opinion.
Yeah, maybe. Oh, so you're saying it's like defamatory in terms of just like, would it actually? Do you think it'll result in Noah losing the lawsuit?
No, it just So I can see a world where Noah loses this lawsuit, but I don't think that would be just based on how I think defamation should work, and definitely not how I think defamation within the system of the US should work, if you know what I mean. Not necessarily even from a moral thing, but if you look at the First Amendment, I feel like, and the way cases have gone before, that my understanding of how it's gone before, I feel like the way it should work is that should be allowed. Now, whether that will actually pan out, or whether Noah will get totally fucked, whether he'll, whether Trump will personally throw him in jail or deport him, who knows? But I think the way it should work, under my understanding of the American system, that should be allowed. That's what I think. That's my read.
And is that just because Noah has like a position that's is that just because Noah has a position that he can call it manufacturing consent, etc.? Like, what if he just like intentionally lied about it? What did you?
Yeah, so if he was making up the factual basis for calling him pro-genocide, so like if I say on October 7th, October 8th, Ethan Klein said we should just nuke Palestine. Actually, we should just kill them all. And that's not true, and I use that to say he's pro-genocide, then yeah, that would be defamatory. But if I say Ethan Klein puts out a lot of interference content that attacks pro-Palestinian activists and manufactures consent like that, that wouldn't be defamatory because the factual base isn't made up. I'm just simply making an opinion based on the facts.
Interesting. But you don't think what he's done constitutes reckless disregard, or you just don't think it should be?
Not from what I've seen. I haven't seen reckless disregard for the truth. I don't know if there's a specific point where you think that happened in regards to Ethan, but I haven't seen it.
It's hard to say because like reckless disregard for the truth in terms of Ethan's position or just in general or in ways that he makes the arguments, because in part of building his case, Noah, like he uses things like he talks about like Ethan, one of them is he says that Ethan lied about Hezbollah, but then he doesn't really say any examples of how Ethan lied about Hezbollah. But how does lying about even if you lie about Hezbollah, how does that mean you're pro-genocide? It's just like you have to be willing to concede that it's acceptable to have such a like loose interpretation of how someone sees the entire conflict to accuse them of being
But no, I don't think you have to. No.
Yeah.
You don't have to have. It's not. It doesn't even have to be a statement on how they see the conflict. You can call someone pro-genocide or say they back a genocide simply in their effect, right? If they're producing content that has the effect of running interference for the Israeli government and dispelling pro-Palestine activism, you could say they back a genocide in what they do in their content.
Yeah, but that's to me like if Noah's going to defend that, then he basically just has to like show himself to be so painfully ignorant that you basically just think like opposing Hamas, Hezbollah, the Houthis, and having issues with people like Hassan and everything is enough to make you pro-genocide because because you believe like
I feel like there's a more complex like Stillman argument there. This is like what frustrates me with this. I feel like there are these Like there is like a much more reasonable argument that you're presenting there, but it feels like no one's actually willing to engage with them. Like it's not just being completely ignorant. It's like it's a read of what the effect of the content is. Like, yeah, you could have a problem with Hassan, have a problem with the Houthis, have a problem with Hezbollah, but you could also, so that could be the one statement where you go, you know, like the tweet where you go, wow, I've got a real problem with all this civilian death. And then the lion's share of your content could be, isn't Israel such a fucked up state that's, you know, Benjamin Netanyahu is trying to consolidate his power and try to keep position to keep exacting punishment on the Palestinian people, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and then that could be the 6-month content arc that you do instead of the attacking pro-Palestine people. But Ethan has done the 6-month content arc or 2-year content arc attacking pro-Palestine people. And so I understand why a lefty making a manufactured consent argument would look at that and say that's backing a genocide.
Yeah, it's again though I can see why they say it. It's just that it's insanely retarded. It's like, yeah, that's because it's just the whole mentality of like you're with us or you're against us. Because again, like the people Ethan attacks or the arguments Ethan attacks are generally people who are like pro-Palestine in what sense? These people have had like all the time in the world and all the social media and everything like clout support in the world to do something about the conflict, and they haven't done shit because they just think that the solution is like what, arms embargo Israel, don't like hold any accountability on or advocate for any accountability for Hamas, Hezbollah, etc., and just kind of like I don't get it. It's not actually like, it's not really a pro-Palestine position. It's just a bunch of like people who are saying that if we just undermine Israel as much as we can, that will somehow result in everything else in the region, like what, sorting itself out. Like the people who want to like kill Israeli civilians or wipe out the nation from the north in Lebanon or from Gaza.
So
or
what would
Yemen will just evaporate.
What would one of these people have to be doing to meet this like standard of pro-Palestinianism that you've got? What like sort of action, what sort of thing would they have to be doing?
Well, for one, is I'm yet to see any of these people show any substantive support for the people in Gaza who are protesting against Hamas. That would be one.
But that's sort of like just saying something still. It feels like you're asking for something a little more than just going online and saying Israel sucks or Hamas sucks or whatever, right? It seems like you're saying that if they really were pro-Palestine, they would be making strides in that direction somehow.
Oh, for actions? Like
that seemed like what you were saying. It seemed like basically you were saying.
So first of all, okay, so again, ensuring Kamala could have won the election. Again, I don't know if the left could have done that by themselves, but I think they didn't really show any effort towards it. Yeah, like you can influence Democrats. Right now, they can't do anything. You're going to get Trump to change his view on Israel-Palestine from the left? Like, no way.
Sure. So you think the only thing they could have really done was vote for Kamala and try and get other people?
No, but like you need them in first of all for a start. Like, so when Democrats were in, they could have, and this was shown from the Democrats, is they could have encouraged more positive behavior from the Democrats in the West Bank. Like they were already sanctioning settlers and even sanctioning entire military units in the West Bank, which was unprecedented. Actually, Biden was the first president ever to do moves like that. They could have encouraged that behavior more. They could have done more targeted BDS towards industries that are actually connected to settlement infrastructure or to particular military units that are more egregious. They didn't do that either. Yeah, those are things that are within people's power that could be done. But the problem is that people aren't actually like in favor of supporting Palestine. They're in favor of supporting a narrative of Palestine, which is you run defense for militant groups that don't help Palestinians.
They're doing the whole anti-colonial bullshit. I get
Yeah, and you basically purity test people on no solution other than a one-state solution for two people, which the people who live there don't want that.
So, okay,
I'm going to people like the Houthis and Hezbollah,
ask you one last question, and then I'm going to leave you alone, so waste so much of your time. But, so, okay, my perspective, when someone's like, what do you actually think should happen? Because I get frustrated with, Mutahar especially did this when he went on Ethan Klein's stream to talk about the lawsuit. He basically just said, oh yeah, I wish everyone could just John Lennon imagine. I'm not pro-genocide. I wish everyone could just John Lennon imagine. You know, I don't want to see anyone die. I wish they could all just get along. It's like just saying, I wish they could all just get along when the status quo is continued death and destruction. That seems like an expansion. That seems like basically you're tacitly agreeing with the status quo, because you don't have any passion or any belief or any energy to change anything about the status quo. You're just like, I wish everyone could get along, and that's kind of like a meaningless thing to say. So I usually say that basically my frustration and the way I would like to see things resolved is with heavy international community involvement, and that probably should have happened like 10, 15 years ago. Is that reasonable to you, or do you have some other thing you think I should be saying about, what the way forward is?
So first of all, I think whatever Mutahar was saying about wishing everyone would get along is probably about as useful as what most of the activists have done in the last year, but regardless. In terms of what to advocate for, first of all, I don't know. Personally, I think it would behoove people to actually listen to what people who live in the region have to say. So when people talk about, say, for example, a 1 or 2 state solution, you can ask Palestinians about this. There have been polls done on this. When you talk about a 1 state solution, which is a shared country for 2 people, not like
I've always,
state
I've not like crazy dug into it, but I've always leaned more towards 2 state for sure. Because it does seem like these are people that essentially do just want to kill each other, and you can't just put them in one country and say, oh yeah, you guys have to figure it out. That sounds insane to me.
Yeah, and they'll tell you that as well. Like, because when people talk about 1 state, it's like they want 1 state for their own group, not for 2 people. That's Israelis and Palestinians both see that. So, like, yeah, 1 shared state is the least popular option for both people. Doesn't make any sense. When we talk about like political action that could have been done 10 or 15 years ago, well, first of all, I think the unfortunate truth is that if there is going to be Palestinian statehood, Hamas has to go. They should have been dealt with far longer ago than now, so that they didn't have tunnels and like decades worth of military infrastructure built up in the strip, so that you have this incredible like bogged down fucking shit show of a war right now. Netanyahu has to go because he has no interest in Palestinian statehood. He just wants to defend his own interests, and also is probably going to allow Trump to just kick everyone out of Gaza if he wants to do that. Yeah, that would need to go, and that can be, as far as activism against Israel's worst excesses, even I engaged in this when I was a student, and it was actually successful for a period, was universities can look at universities that they're connected to, because some universities in the West are connected to universities that run in the West Bank, like settlement universities. And you can divest from them. It's actually quite you can run a campaign against that and say, yeah, we don't want to like cut ourselves off from all of Israel, like 2 states or whatever, but we don't want to be like supporting settlement infrastructure. That's an easy target. Another target would be like settlement produce. So there was a big campaign in Europe in like 2012-13 when I was at uni that was to do with stopping shops from selling produce that came from the settlements. And what that actually did was it was going across all over Europe. And when these supermarkets stopped stocking produce from the settlements, Israeli settlers admitted that their projects were getting slowed down. Like they couldn't expand their settlers further because they weren't able to sell goods from that activity. And it was the same even with Biden. He only had like a few months to do it, but putting sanctions on settlers also resulted in those settlers becoming less popular at home as well, because within Israel there have been military units and settler units in the West Bank that are now currently being prosecuted and dismantled from within the IDF, probably because like that kind of repercussion was normalized by Biden's actions first, because Israelis do that quite a lot. Like they defer to American opinion, especially like quite a lot. So yeah, there are things people can do. People can be sensible. People can target things and realize also the limits of what you can do as a Western activist. But yeah, no, but that's not what people care about.
Okay,
that's
just based on something you said there, can I just ask a tough question about the excesses, the limits of your position here? So, do you think that as long as proper precautions like within reason are taken to minimize civilian casualty, Israel are justified in completely clearing out all of the military infrastructure tunnels, regardless of how much of the civilian infrastructure is damaged in the process?
It wouldn't be regardless. You have to prove
But there has
that,
to be some
yeah.
level of proportionality, sure. But ultimately, if it is the case that destroying all that infrastructure requires basically just flattening Gaza, is that justified?
If destroying all the infrastructure requires flattening Gaza, no.
Okay.
No. Because you'd have to think about political ways outside of that.
So, would you say where the conflict's at right now? Is that past the limit for you, or do you feel like it's still good right now?
I mean, despite what the people in your chat would say, I've been opposed to them continuing military operations in Gaza since about the last summer. Like, there was a long time ago when there was a report from U.S. Intel that said,
yeah, people tried to tell me a bunch of bullshit about your coverage of the aid worker massacre the other day, and I went and watched it, and I was like, okay, well, he didn't say that at all, did he? He was totally on board with the evidence that was presented in this fucking like Sky News investigation, whatever it was. I fucking watched Sky News video on it anyway.
Yeah, it is what it is. Yeah, no, I think there was a U.S. Intel report last summer that said that the IDF had more or less achieved everything they could militarily, and it would be more fruitful to start pursuing some kind of day after, or one of the
rebuilding project.
One of the proposals was a rebuilding project in particular areas. Yeah.
Got you.
Like the Hamas free zones and shit like that. Yeah, those were things that should have been pursued ages ago. The problem is that Israel has a right to try and destroy Hamas. Like, Hamas are a fucking cancer, but the problem is that they don't want to destroy Hamas for the right reasons.
The thing is, it feels like it feels like destroying Hamas, like, while a goal that like fundamentally I agree with and see the point of, it feels like it does also function as like a blank check to do whatever the fuck you want, because you can never truly destroy Hamas. It basically is just like it is a blank check, it feels like.
Yeah, it's a blank check, and it's also it's in Netanyahu's interest, his political, personal, selfish interest, to keep the war going, because he's like, there's more than enough against him for corruption to go to jail.
Yeah,
like,
that's my understanding. And then he tried to remove, what was it, there was some guy at the court blocked him from removing recently. Was it some defense secretary or something, some shit like that? So it feels like basically it's been a non-stop consolidation of power that the courts in the country and outside have been trying to stop, but basically no one can because there's no political will because they're in war. Is that
yeah?
Is that
he's
correct?
Just like, yeah, his whole government is like that. His whole government is just everyone trying to go for their own little special interest group, and yeah, it's just tyranny. Yeah,
got you.
But that's also why, like, they're not. I'm kind of skeptical about how much they really care about destroying Hamas particularly, but also that even if they do, it's not for a rebuilding project the day after.
No,
like,
it's for
they don't even
ethnic cleansing, basically.
Yep.
Okay.
So,
cool. Well.
Yeah.
Great. Well, good talking to you. I feel like I've improved my understanding here a bit and sharpened the arguments. So.
Okay.
Thanks for chatting.
Anytime, all right?
I'll catch you later.
Take care, buddy. Bye-bye.
Yeah, his chat was calling me a terrorist sympathizer. You guys were calling him a genocide supporter. Okay, listen. I find it funny, though, that the Lebanese guy is getting called the genocide supporter and the Jew is getting called the terrorist sympathizer. Fake Jew and fake Arab. What's hard to understand? All right, man. I thought that was a good conversation. I thought that was good. I feel like that's... I thought that was valuable.
Let's just turn Kuihman's chat into another sneering lefty chat. Surely this time the genocide will stop if everyone in here is a gay loser that constantly mistakes their own arrogance for intelligence.
Based? W and Nina lying about LonerBox? Defaming LonerBox in my chat. W, let's go.